it's an interesting situation. First of all, I think according to Elias, there's never been a player drafted in the first round of Major League Baseball and also the first round of the NFL draft. You assume he's leaving, right? I mean, I saw reports this week that said Jalen Hurts, the Alabama quarterback, was on OU's campus. Obviously wouldn't think he would make that move if he thought Kyler Murray was going to stay. So let's assume that he does announce tomorrow that he's going into the NFL draft. Louis, where do you expect him to be at in that list?
Okay, as far as the quarterbacks are concerned, I consider, obviously, from what I've seen so far, Dwayne Haskins would be the first quarterback that goes off of the board. But I'll say this about Kyler Murray. What's going to be interesting about him is, look, in the scouting world, people find comfort in drafting measurables. Why? It provides you some downside in the event, or rather it provides you a safety net on the downside if a guy doesn't pan out. If you draft a guy who has ideal measurables, who's 6'4", 220, and has 10-inch hands and is thrown for a whole bunch of yards, and he doesn't pan out, it's easy to go, well, it wasn't us. It was him, because the kid had everything. If a guy like Kyler Murray doesn't pan out, they're going to point to his arm. They're going to point to his size. They're going to point to his hand size. They're going to point to the offense he played at. They're going to point to the fact that he was also a baseball player. All those things make scouts and GMs uncomfortable. But I'll tell you this, when you watch this kid's film, and I've talked to a few GMs who've also watched him, they go, he can flat out play. He's not just an athlete. He is a tremendous thrower, and it looks very, very natural to him. So that's going to be the interesting debate over the next couple of months. There's a lot to learn about this kid still. It's way too premature to say where he would stack right now in the overall draft structure of the first round or second round, because there's so much to learn about him off the field and mentally. But as far as throwing the football, Sam, he can flat out rip it.
Well, we saw it last year, Matt. I mean, Baker Mayfield didn't have all the measurables either. He ends up going first overall and did all right for himself this year. So what are your expectations for Kyler?
Yeah, once upon a time, to play quarterback in the NFL, you had to look a certain way. You had to be 6'4" minimum. And anybody under 6'4" was kind of like, we're not really sure about you. We're not going to invest in that. That has changed. Guys like Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, you mentioned Baker Mayfield. They have an it factor, but also we mentioned earlier in the segment with Patrick Mahomes and all the different arm angles, these shorter quarterbacks, that ball gets up out of their hand higher than some of the other quarterbacks. And so that's something that you don't have to coach. And guess what? Kyler Murray and guys like him have stuff that you quite honestly can't coach. Here's an unblocked guy. He's from Alabama. He's probably going to the NFL. Untouched. Great throw. So when you have the stuff that you can't coach, it reminds people of Russell Wilson. It reminds them of that the elusiveness. And hey, like maybe we don't block up everything right, but what you need to be able to do is make those throws consistently. Most college quarterbacks, they can make them sometimes. They don't make them at the moment of truth. That one opportunity that you get, the consistency as a thrower is what we've seen out of guys like Drew Brees and Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson. If Kyler Murray can show that he can do that consistently every single time when it's there, then there's no doubt that he could be a starter in the NFL and a high pick.
And I was just going to say, let's make no mistake, where he goes, just like with all these young quarterbacks, when we're sitting there on draft night and his name gets called, depending upon where he goes, will tell you how much money to get and put on the table as far as betting on whether or not he pans out or not. As soon as Patrick Mahomes was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, we all looked at each other and said, "Look out." Yeah. This is gonna work out. I mean, so let's just see where he goes.
And another thing, I just need to say this. Patrick Mahomes did not play his rookie year.
Yeah.
It was obnoxious how people were like trying to get all these 5 first-round pick quarterbacks on the field as quick as they possibly could. Patrick Mahomes did not start right away. Jared Goff did not start right away. Tom Brady, you do not need to start your first year to have a successful 10-year-plus career.
No, you don't.
So some of these quarterbacks, to lose point, it's a very good point. The GM, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, the starting quarterback that you show up with your rookie year is very, very important. Sometimes it means you either succeed in the NFL or you're out of the NFL.
How you set the table is critical. I mean, he played the position. As a front office type, how you set it up for these kids is what will determine their success failure 99% of the time.
Sam, I was never as talented as any of these guys. I was a 6th-round pick, not invited to the combine. My rookie year, it's Mike Holmgren as the head coach. Yep. Andy Reid is our position coach. Some guy named Brett Favre, the backup quarterback, Doug Peterson. I should have been paying them to get to sit in those meetings, but they were paying me.
They might call you about
If I don't get drafted to the Green Bay Packers, I don't play 18 years in the NFL. I probably play 2. Maybe 1, maybe none. So that is a great point by Lou, and it's very, very important for
But there's also the other side of it, and that's that the formula that's right in front of him, Baker Mayfield, Heisman Trophy winner out of OU, went to a situation, I'm not saying the cupboard was bare by any means in Cleveland, but where a lot of guys wouldn't have wanted to go. and he just made it work. Some
But-
guys have that it factor that even though a coach gets fired, things don't look good from the outside, there's just something special.
But it's interesting
about
how the table was even set for Baker in Cleveland as far as having Tyrod Taylor there. Maybe on the outside looking in, it looks like chaos. But really, once you get into the meeting room and you're around your guys and you're around your coach, you're kind of insulated from everything else going on, like what we're talking about as far as the Browns are concerned. And that's what helps him come along. That's why a lot of things that happen on the inside are what really matters.
Yeah.
So wherever he goes, as long as it's solid and secure and the table has been set, that kid can play.
Yes, he can. We know that for sure. That's why I'm so intrigued to see what happens in
Yeah.
Arizona. I know they say everything's in on Josh Rosen, but you never know until
we'll see.
draft
Oh,
night.
come on.
And yes, draft night you can watch on ESPN and ABC come April. It's going to be a fun one.